What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. And this one, we are going to do my NHL predictions for the upcoming 17-18 season, all right? Hockey is back and returns tomorrow when I'm uploading this. Obviously, it's been back for a while if you're watching this during the season. This is the first predictions video that I'm going to do for the regular season. You might have seen my dog predict the NHL playoffs last year. Didn't really go so well. But yeah, it was all in good fun, and predictions are something that I really enjoy doing, mainly to see how I do at the end and compare, and I'll be sure to debrief my predictions once the season's over. So if you have any ideas about anything else you want me to try and predict, leave them in the comments down below. A lot has happened in the offseason, a lot of trades, the expansion draft, there's a whole brand new team in the league this year. So there are a few unknowns that I've had to take into consideration here. Very, very tough to try and rank all 31 teams. So I'm going to disaggregate it, break it down by conference. I'll show you guys who I think is going to make the playoffs, who I think is not going to do so hot this year. Give a little bit of explanation behind each of my selections to hopefully justify it enough so that you guys actually realize that I put some thought into these rankings. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Drop a like if you're ready for the upcoming NHL season. And let's get into my predictions. So starting at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, I'm picking the Detroit Red Wings to finish in last. They have fallen from grace from their 25-year-long playoff appearance streak. That's over, that's done, and I think it might be a while until they make it again. They've got an aging forward core with the likes of Zetterberg in there, and Datsyuk's gone. So that means Tatar, Nyquist, Mantha, Larkin, all those young guys need to step up, rack up some points, and play some big minutes. They've also got one of the oldest D-cores in the league, and it can't really be relied upon to provide offensive support. They've still got no bona fide starter with the constant battle in the crease between Mrazek and Howard, who are both inconsistent in their own rights. In next to last place, we have New Jersey, who's, you know, they did have the #1 overall pick, and Nico Hischier was a great pick, but they are still lacking some forward depth, except for their bright young stars like Pavel Zacha and Nico Hischier, who'll be playing a lot of minutes while Zajac is still out. The D's not great. They don't have anyone I would consider a bona fide, even top 2 defenseman, let alone #1. But of course, Schneider will always be there to help them steal some games and get some wins, but it won't be enough, and he'll finish second last. At 14th, I'm picking Florida. Now, this is probably lower than I wanted to put them because I really like their young, exciting team, but I mean, it's just they're hurting without Yager. I know he's old, but he's a beast. And the loss of Marchessault, who scored 30-plus goals for them last season. I mean, they still have good talent, and they really have to hope that guys like Huberdeau stay healthy during the season if they want to be competitive. The D-core is young and mobile, but still fairly weak and lacking depth. They need to rely heavily on Ekblad, who needs to have a breakout season this year. And in terms of their goaltending, I don't really think Luongo and Reimer is the best duo to play a full season. Luongo's 38, Reimer's also pretty old. They're kind of on their decline, both of them, and yeah, I don't think they'll hold up against the rest of the NHL. Now, this was really hard to put a team with Giroux, Voracek, and Simmons so low down the conference, but I mean, that's really all they have up front, unless guys like Konechny and Patrick, who broke into the lineup on starting night, it looks like he'll play. If they can step up into the big roles, then that'll definitely help their scoring and might move them up the list a little bit. The D-core is really not up to par, other than guys like Ghost and Provorov. They're pretty slow overall. They're not really on par with the rest of the conference. And I'm also not sold on their goaltending tandem with Brian Elliott and Michael Neuvirth. There seems to be constant, conflict and switches in the Phillies net. So, I mean, I'm not really sold on their team in general. I wish they could do better with those top 3 that I mentioned before, but I don't really see them doing any better than 13th. At 12, I got New York Islanders. Now, it's pretty damn hard to discount a team that has John Tavares on it, but I mean, there's just not really that much to help him. I mean, unless, again, like, if the rookies can step up, if Barzal can do what he did in the preseason, if Ho-Sang can kind of figure out his mind and focus on hockey and play the way he can, I think that'll really help him. The Eberle acquisition was good. Hopefully it pays off. But I mean, as a Leafs fan, I kind of want to see Johnny T struggle, get frustrated, and then want to get traded to Toronto. But I mean, of course, that's wishful thinking. Now, I wanted to put Carolina higher than 11th, and just because they're so fun to watch recently. They've got a great young forward core with guys like Aho and Skinner, kind of revitalized with the whole youth movement there. Now, Carolina's also have a very young D-core like some of these other teams at the bottom, but they are on the up and up, and last season was definitely proof of that. Guys like Justin Falk, Noah Hannafin, and Jacob Slavin, he tore it up last year, and he's looking to be very good. That top three could be one of the elite top threes in the league. At number 10, I've got the Sabres, who have been disappointing me the last couple seasons. I was hoping Eichel could make a bigger impact than he has. Of course, he has been injured, but this team is highly, highly underrated, and I'm hoping and expecting that they all break out this year, build more team chemistry, and find their groove and find their scoring touch, which they should have ample of this year in the league. Assuming they're healthy, the forwards are part of a very solid core led by Eichel, who's dominant. Solid addition of Jason Pominville. Hopefully he plays on his wing with Kane. That'll be a great line. D-core is also highly underrated. Guys like Risto, Bogosian, the acquisition of Scandella, McCabe, they're going to be really good. The only question mark is goaltending, and I'm still not sold on Lehner. He's had injury troubles. I'm hoping he can play a full season, and I hope he can establish himself along with the Buffalo Sabres as, a legit contender this year. And the last team not to make the playoffs will be the Ottawa Senators, I think. They have a solid forward core, and they went on a Cinderella run last year, but I think that's kind of what it was, an anomaly, a Cinderella run, and I doubt they can repeat it again. They've got some great young players, Hoffman, Stone, obviously Carlson. He's injured, but I don't think he's out too long. But the loss of Mathot is a pretty big one, and the D-core will be hurting because of that. Now I expect Anderson to play and steal a few more games for them, but I mean, he's not really the most consistent goaltender, and that's kind of what Ottawa needs with kind of a worse defense than last year. Their forward core is all right, but again, they've had some injuries up front, and I don't think they're going to do as well as they did last year. Unfortunately, they'll just miss the playoffs. So the first team to slide into the playoffs at number 8 is the Boston Bruins, and I think they just have enough to edge out the competition of likes of Ottawa, Buffalo, all those guys, and I think they can do it just because they have a really good mix of depth and veteran presence with young emerging talent. The top 6 should be strong enough to make it into the playoffs, assuming Pasternak and Marchand can continue their great play like they did last year. Although they do have a pretty slow D-core, guys like Krug and McAvoy will definitely help that, and you gotta watch Charlie as a Calder candidate this year for sure. Rask is still a great elite goaltender. You can never count him out. He can always steal a game, and I think the Bruins have just enough to squeak into the playoffs yet again. Of course, I am a Toronto fan, and I've been so excited to watch them be revitalized last season, but I want to kind of keep a level head and kind of see through the bias and note that last year was a very, very successful year in that the rookies played unbelievable. Matthews with 40 goals. He'd be hard-pressed to repeat that again. He can do it, but I'm just saying 40 goals is a high benchmark for a second-year player. So hopefully he does it. Hopefully the rest of that team plays the way they did last year. They've got insane depth on forward. Their D-core is a little iffy. Riley, Gardner really have to prepare themselves to play big minutes against the top units in the league. Anderson is a good goaltender. I wouldn't say elite yet. He needs to really establish himself as such this year, playing a lot more games, hopefully avoiding injuries. And the Leafs in general need to avoid injuries as they did last year if they want to compete. That's why I have them so low, is because last year they were just so healthy. It was unreal. So I'm assuming that they will get a few injuries. Their depth should compensate for that, but I'm still kind of being cautiously optimistic and having them make the playoffs, but finish up at number 7. At number 6, we have the New York Rangers, who are kind of on the decline, but they still got a great team. The loss of Stepan really hurts their forward core, but otherwise they're still pretty solid. They got a very, very solid D-core, one of the best in the East, if not the best. And with the addition of Shattenkirk and the emergence of Brady Shea, I mean, that just solidifies it right there. Hopefully Shattenkirk can perform on the Rangers better than he did on the Caps. Of course, you have the king and still one of the top goaltenders in the league, Henrik Lundqvist. He's always good to steal a few games for the Rangers, if not tens of games. And they've got Andre Pavlik, who has a lot of recent NHL experience as a starter in Winnipeg, although didn't really go over that well. I think he'll be more comfortable in a backup role, learn from Lundqvist, and yeah, I think that should be a good tandem going forward into this season. So that's why I got him at number 6. At number 5, I've got Montreal. They still have a great forward core and D-core. I mean, I hope the Druin trade pays off, and I hope that he tears it up with Pacioretty on that first line. That acquisition now takes some pressure off Galchenyuk, as the spotlight was all on him last year to hopefully tear it up on that first line center. Didn't really work. And now this move gives them some good forward depth. The D may be an issue as it's one of the oldest and slowest and least mobile D-cores in the league. So we'll have to see how that goes. But defensively, they still should be solid. And of course, you've got Carey Price, the best goaltender in the world. And you can count him to steal 10, 15, 20 games on his own for the Canadiens. So that'll probably help him move up the rankings a little bit, and that's why I'm at number 5. At number 4, we've got the Blue Jackets, who pretty much proved everybody wrong last year. Torts did a great job coaching that team, and they are a gritty bunch who I think will do well again this year at number 4. They've got a great young, capable D-core, very exciting, with Werenski, Jones, Johnson, Savard, Murray, all those guys, really solid. They add Panarin, who will add a significant amount of scoring on their even strength and especially on the power play. We're hoping that Bobrovsky continues his great play, and hopefully he has another Vezina candidate season, although he might not have to be now that their D-core is really solid. The one problem with Columbus is that they still really don't have a first-line center. So, I mean, they could get Duchesne. I mean, that's not off the table, and he'd be a good fit. But as is, I think Columbus is just missing that one piece to take him to the next level, so that's why I got him at 4. At number 3, I've got the Washington Capitals. They've got this pretty much the same core, full of high-end talent. Backstrom, Ovi, Kuznetsov, all those guys, TJ Oshie. They have lost a few key pieces on defense in Carl Alsner and Kevin Shattenkirk, although you could say Shattenkirk wasn't really a key piece. Still a good player nonetheless. Schmidt as well to Vegas, so their D depth is hurting a little bit, and this year, morale may be a bit low after another second round exit. So we'll see how they can bounce back this season. They need to break in some younger players into their lineup as well, both on forward and on D, so that'll take some getting used to. But of course, any great team needs a great goaltender, and they've got one in Holtby, who I think can keep them up there at number 3. Now, this one might be surprising, might not be, just compared to how they did last year. Tampa, I have at number 2. I think they finished 9th or 10th last year, so that wasn't great. That was a very big disappointment. Of course, Stamkos was injured, but I'm expecting big things from Tampa. I'm hoping that Stamkos can stay healthy for a full season. Him and Kucherov, I predicted it in a bunch of videos before this. I'm saying they can both get 80 points at least. Hedman is going to be one of the top 2 defensemen in the league this year. Definitely a Norris Trophy candidate. One of my favorite defensemen to watch personally. And the only kind of question mark there is their goaltending. Vasilevsky, is he capable of playing a long season? I don't think he's played even close to 60-ish games, so he's got to get used to that. Budaj is a capable backup. He did decently well considering in Los Angeles, so hopefully that experience helps him in a backup role on Tampa with a very solid defense in front of them. I think they're going to do big things. I think they're going to finish at number 2. And by deductive reasoning, you probably figured out that I've got Pittsburgh at number 1, and it seems to be the consensus. They could possibly three-peat, which is unheard of in this league, especially in the salary cap era. I mean, the only reasons I can really give are names: Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Murray, Kessel, Hornqvist, Gensel, Schultz. The list goes on. They're cup contenders once again, favorites for a three-peat, and favorite for the President's Trophy in my eyes. They have all the pressure. They have everything to lose if they don't finish first place, and that's why I've got them there. The West was very hard to predict, but I think the worst team was not that hard to predict, and I think the Colorado Avalanche will once again be the worst team in the NHL. They'll be struggling, whether it's with a, unmotivated, unpassionate Matt Duchene, or whether completely without him if he gets traded, which is more likely than not. So there goes their first-line center. Although they do have McKinnon, their center depth, their forward depth in general is just not that great. Same with their D, very weak. outside of Barry and Eric Johnson. Varlamov needs to play absolutely out of his mind if they want any chance of competing for a playoff spot, which I don't think they'll do. It'll be another ugly year for the Avs and potentially a first overall pick this time. So the expansion draft came and went, and I had some high hopes for Vegas. And this team, I don't think anybody can really predict. I mean, you look at the team on paper as it stands right now, and yeah, it's okay, but you see their roster and how many defensemen they have, how many players they have on one-year contracts. They could do, there's an endless possibility of things that they could do with those players. They can move them at the trade deadline to upgrade if they want to compete for the playoffs, or they could, unload them for better picks next year and kind of tank. So depends on whether they want to go. I think they'll gauge at the beginning of the year how competitive they are. I mean, I don't know. The team has decent depth, but no real elite players. Guys like Neil Shipachyov, who I don't really know, but are said to be some of their best players. They have some young players that could surprise, and a ton of trading assets, like I said. Fleury's definitely capable of stealing some games and playing in a long season, which will help. He's got that experience, but I think the team will struggle with no real elite talent on forward or defense. And yeah, so that's why I'm playing it safe, putting them at 14. Another interesting team to look at was Vancouver. I have them at 13, but they are old and slower and disappointing as of late, but they do still have some great young talent that I really hope emerges this year. Guys like Virtanen, who really needs to step up and stay in the NHL with his play, and also guys like Brock Besser, who's another Calder candidate. Got to watch out for that kid. He could be playing first-line minutes or first-line power play with the Sedins. The guy can do it all. He's really good. Their goaltending's an issue. Their defense is still kind of an issue. But I think they won't really do as bad as some people think. I got them at least above Vegas and Colorado. So, we'll see what happens, Canucks fans. I'm praying for you. But, this is kind of another write-off year. I have you guys at 13. So if Carolina or Buffalo were my dark horse teams to make the playoffs in the East, then I would say that Arizona and or Winnipeg would be my dark horse teams to make it in the West. Arizona has made so many impressive moves. Chaka over there with the GM role. He's a wizard. I don't know how he makes some of these moves. Their D-core got a lot better, and their forward core as well. With Stepan there. So, their young forward core is exciting, great to watch, and Stepan will help lead now that Doan's gone, unfortunately. They will probably still struggle to score. Young guys like Strome and Keller hopefully can make an impact. Keller is my personal Calder candidate. Him, Besser, and McAvoy, those three are... I think they're going to be my final three, to be honest. The D-core is super impressive. Like I said, they took Hjalmarsson, who is one of the best defensive defensemen in the league. I'm so sad to see him go from Chicago. So those guys will help them suppress shots and protect their goaltending, which is one of the worst in the league. If Domingue is their starting goaltender, they're in for a rough ride. There's no really arguing about it. Arizona's goaltending is pretty bad. Their team's all right. I'm hoping them to do better than 12th, but that's where I have them this year. So LA at number 11, I think, is one of the teams that's kind of on their way down now. Their core is kind of aging and not really playing the way they used to when they were, elite contenders for the playoffs. Although last year was probably an anomaly because Quick was injured for so long. I still have them at number 11 just because I think, a healthy Quick brings them up. But then the other teams that I have ahead of them, I think, made bigger leaps to improve their team. So that's why I think they kind of stay put. Both forward and D-depth are hurting a little bit. They do have guys like Kopitar, Carter, Toffoli, Doughty, Muzzin. So those staples are good. But, the rest of the team is all right. They're breaking in some young players. Assuming they stay healthy, they should do decent, but there's a lot of other elite teams that are up and coming in the West, and I think they're going to have another disappointing year and miss the playoffs. I really, really struggled putting Winnipeg only at number 10. I really think that they have a great shot at making the playoffs, and they do. Like from 7 to 10 are all legitimate playoff contenders this year, but Winnipeg... The big question mark for them is their the depth and their goaltending. I mean, the team overall is super underrated. They have one of my personal favorite forward cores in the league with Scheifele, Laine, Little, Wheeler, Ehlers. Those guys are nuts. They're so good. They'll probably be one of the top scoring teams in the league. Their decor is kind of unproven. They're scary big with Bufflin, with Trouba, with Myers, all those guys. But their goaltending is still the biggest issue. And the team is still fairly young and inexperienced. So I think those two knocks keep them below the playoffs right now. But this, I think, will be the last year that they miss the playoffs. And they'll be in the playoffs, I think, for multiple years to come. Now, incoming at number 9, St. Louis, one of probably the most controversial pick I have on this list. But I'm telling you guys, it's so hard to separate the teams in the West. Only 8 teams can make the playoffs. You have to leave a few really good teams out. And St. Louis is the one for me that will probably not make the cut. They already have injuries to Steen and Fabry, who's going to miss the rest of the year. So that's a big loss for their depth scoring. Although they still have guys like Tarasenko, Stastny, Schwartz, and Braden Shen, who they just acquired. So that should help a little bit. Their decor is also good, but not great. They don't really have any elite offensive defensemen to kind of drive the play. Pietrangelo and Parayko were good, but I don't think they're great in terms of offensive point production or possession. So I think that'll hurt them. And then Allen, I'm still not sold on that kid. He played really, really good in the playoffs, but over a long season as a number 1, he's still got to prove that. To me personally, I'm not going to give him enough credit for just a good playoff run. But he's got to play that way if he wants St. Louis to make the playoffs. So the first team in the West to make the playoffs is the Calgary Flames. In my opinion, the team will probably struggle to score a little bit, although they have largely the same core as last year with the, of course, very recent and very exciting addition of Jaromir Jagr on the Calgary Flames. They're going to have to lean heavily on Gaudreau and Monahan again to lead their team in scoring. And Jagr is, of course, old, but he's always good for at least 40 to 50 points in a season. You can't discount the guy. I don't know why it took so long for teams to sign him. The decor is super impressive. I think it's the second best decor in the West behind Nashville. In addition to guys like Giordano and Brody and Hamilton, they also got Stone and Hamonic this season, so they have 5 solid defensemen at least, so that'll help them stay in games and suppress shots. Their goaltending is the question. Mike Smith, will he do well? I don't know. I mean, people kind of underrate him because, he played on Arizona and didn't get the best results there, but that was in front of the old Arizona decor. Now he's moved on to Calgary's decor, which should help him a lot improve his numbers and help him establish, himself better as a better goaltender in people's eyes. So yeah, I think all of that will kind of help Calgary make the playoffs, squeak in at number 8. At number 7, we got San Jose Sharks, who are still great. Their forward core is still awesome, even with the loss of Marleau. They've still got Thornton, Couture, Pavelski, Bodker, Hurdle, a lot of other guys, and their depth is solid. Their defense is pretty much unchanged, although it is getting on the older side. They still have the elite guys like Bernsey on offense and Vlasic on defense. I'm still really not sold on Jones being at number 1. He is good, but I think I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about Jonesy. I think he's good, but not great. And I think that will help him or hinder them make it into the playoffs, but at number 7. So I know a lot of people are excited about the moves that Dallas made in the offseason. I have them coming in at number 6. I think they're going to make the leap, and they're one of the teams, or probably the only team, that's going to push a team like St. Louis out of the playoffs. They have really strong depth at center now with Sagan, Spezza, and Hansel. That's going to be great. The addition of Radulov, Mathot, and Bishop helps them on all 3 areas of the ice, forward, defense, and goaltending. The D still a little suspect. The depth can be called into question, but I think the addition of Mathot will really help them defensively. And you could see Mathot, and if he plays at Klingberg, that could be the new Mathot and Carlson pairing, and kind of help Klingberg unleash his offensive side while Mathot stays at home. I think it'll be interesting to watch Dallas play this year, and I think they're going to do enough to get number 6. Oh, my Hawks. What am I going to do with my Hawks? The cap issues have been so pressing these past few years. I mean, they still do have the core: Taves, Kane, Keith, Seabrook, Crawford. But I mean, they've lost a few key pieces that I think will bring them down a notch this year. Guys like Panarin, trade to Columbus, Hossa injured, Hjalmarsson to Arizona. Those are 3 huge losses offensively, defensively. It's going to be an adjustment without those guys. They also have to break in a lot of new guys. Schmaltz, DeBrincat, I think, made the starting lineup. So those guys hopefully can adjust well and adjust quickly to kind of make up for those lost points in Panarin. Sod and Sharp should help, but it won't be enough to supplement. And their decor honestly is not great. I mean, all they really have is Keith and Seabrook. No more Hjalmarsson. So, I mean, they got to bring in guys like Kempney and Roosevelt. I don't know. I'm not sold on their defense anymore. Crawford's still elite. He's still elite. But doesn't really have that solid backup in Darling. That loss also hurts. He just needs to be consistent and stay healthy so he can play most of the games this season. Keep him in it. And I think Hawks are brought down a notch, but not too far. I have him dropping only to number 5. One of the most surprising and exciting teams in the NHL, Nashville Predators. I have them at number 4. I don't think they'll kill it in the regular season. I think in the regular season they usually do a passable job. They get the job done just to squeak into the playoffs. I think they know more than anybody that all you need to do is get into the playoffs and anything can happen. So, I mean, they're young, they're fast. The loss of James Neal does hurt, but the top line with Arvidsson, Johansson, and Forsberg should be able to make up for his lack of scoring. They've got the best decor in the league. It's not even a question. Although what does hurt is Ryan Ellis being out for a few months to start the season. That's kind of what's preventing me from putting them higher up in the conference. So they've also got one of the best goalies in the game, Rene. I don't know why people discount that guy. He's so good. Steals games all the time. You saw him against Chicago in that sweep. He's unreal. I mean, the playoffs weren't a fluke for Nashville. They're the real deal. Without James Neal, they'll finish in number 4. At number 3, I've got Anaheim retaining their spot in the conference. They're just a great team. They're so solid. They have some key players injured to start the year, but they're still solid throughout their lineup. Getzlaf, Perry, Kessler, Raquel, Silverberg on forward, Lindholm, Fowler, Vatanen, even Brandon Montour on defense, Gibson with Ryan Miller backing him up in net. Very solid depth all around. They'll be dominant this year as long as they can get and stay healthy, and I think number 3 is definitely warranted. Now, it always kind of angers me putting Minnesota higher than Chicago, but you can't deny the team on paper. They're so good. They're one of the deepest teams in the league, and under coach Bruce Boudreau, I mean, they're always good for a 100-point season. So, I mean, regular season, we're just talking now. We're not talking about playoffs yet, Minnesota. I think you guys have what it takes to finish at number 2. Decor somehow still intact through the expansion. I mean, they lost Scandella, but they kept Brodin and Dumba, who I thought both might have gone. So they kept some key pieces there. Dubnyk is still highly underrated, and I hope he continues his elite play because Minnesota needs it if they want to compete at number 2. And at number 1, we have the Edmonton McDavids. We have the Edmonton Oilers, led by none other than Connor McDavid. I think I made my point, didn't I? He can literally take Edmonton to the Cup Finals if he wants to the Cup himself. I mean, he's that good. He's definitely. I'm actually very confident that Edmonton's going to get number 1 in the West unless he gets injured. You know, that's always the asterisk here. Hoping people don't get injured. I really hope he stays healthy because the NHL needs him. They just need him to electrify the league, get new fans, and keep interest. They have great forward depth. Draisaitl, I mean, you can't forget that guy. He's number 2 center. I can't believe it's like the new Crosby and Malkin duo. Luch, Maroon, Nuge, all these guys, so good. Their depth on forward is good. Their depth on D is good. Sekera, Larson, Nurse, Russell, all these guys really solid as well. Talbot should get ready to play another long season. I hope he's ready for it, and I hope he stays healthy. So guys, that about sums up the video. I hope you guys enjoy my predictions. you know, I mean, you guys obviously have your own teams that may or may not have made the playoffs. In my eyes, obviously, they're predictions, right? You got to take them with a grain of salt here. All I'm interested in seeing is some good hockey this year. Hockey's back, baby. Once again, drop a like if you're excited for the NHL season. Subscribe for more predictions, hockey analysis, NHL 18 videos, real-life hockey content. Anything hockey related, you can be sure to find it on this channel, guys. I'm so excited for hockey. It's back, baby. I'll see you guys when the season starts. Let's go.